White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said President Trump prefers a negotiated settlement with Iran, but she also said this at today's briefing.
There's many reasons and arguments that one could make for a strike against Iran. The president had a very successful operation as commander-in-chief with Operation Midnight Hammer, as you know, as you just said, totally obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities. The president has always been very clear, though, with respect to Iran or any country around the world, diplomacy is always his first option, and Iran would be very wise to make a deal.
Charlie Daggett is with me here now, our national security expert and reporter. I'm so glad to have you here. James Laporta, one of our colleagues, has just sent in an email, which I will summarize to you because it was just summarized in my ear.
Okay.
That senior military advisors, the president have told him that the military is ready for a strike, could be as ready as early as Saturday, but the timeline has not been decided upon and could very well stretch far into the future.
Right.
That is probably consistent with what you know. It's consistent with what the Pentagon does, plans, makes preparations when the president is indicating he wants to have live options. Walk us through where this feels like it's heading.
Major, that's exactly right. And that jives exactly with the information that I'm getting as well. You know, they're preparing for every contingency, U.S. officials tell me. What does that look like? It could be a strike package, limited strike package, air strikes. Then they have to be concerned at the retaliation. This is why we've seen this massive military buildup there. And I don't want to bang the drums of war, but I have to underline what we're talking about. So you have the Lincoln the Lincoln aircraft carrier that's been there for a few weeks already in place. 10 destroyers or cruisers. These are guided missile cruisers, again, already in place in the region. The real tell for me, and James will support this, is the arrival or the potential arrival of the USS Gerald R. Ford. This is really important because that would not have been a decision that was taken lightly. It was already at sea. It had gone from European command to the Caribbean. It was involved, right, with the Maduro capture. Now turned around to go to the Middle East, possibly in a shooting war, kinetic war. So you are looking at a substantial, considerable military buildup. Haven't even mentioned the F-22 fighter jets, the F-35s that are already there, the cargo refuelers, the cargo planes, the aerial refuelers. You're talking about a buildup, again, for every contingency. If the United States were to strike Iran, they have to be prepared for how Iran is going to retaliate.
And I want to read to you something that a reporter who's very well read in on the region.
Yep.
A byline that you follow, a byline that I follow. Barak Ravid for Axios. Quote, a U.S. military option in Iran would likely be a massive, weeks-long campaign that would look more like full-fledged war than last month's pinpoint operation in Venezuela, sources say.
Yep.
Consistent with what you also
I can't argue with that. Again, that's what they're preparing for, right? They're preparing for that sort of contingency. And the reason here, Major, if you remember Operation Midnight Hammer back in June, right? That was a limited strike, big strike, using B-2 bombers left from the United States, not even involved, right? The Iranians did attack, and they attacked Al Udeid, our base in Qatar. What they're looking at now is if there is an existential threat to this regime, they're going to press everything. They might go after Israel. They might go after U.S. forces. There are 30 to 40,000 U.S. forces in that region. They have to be prepared for an extended, long-term, drawn-out conflict that we haven't seen with Iran. And that is why they're moving so many of those military assets in there. They're going to be looking at Iran's missile capabilities, which they still have. They'll be looking at Iran's capability to strike in these sort of areas around where the U.S. naval assets are deployed and they're exposed. So they're preparing for a multi-pronged attack if Iran should retaliate, as they are expected to do if the United States launches strikes.
And, of course, as we discussed with Sam Vinograd at this table yesterday on the program, this very visible military footprint might be also viewed as a negotiating strategy. Like, we're serious, you better cut a deal. The White House keeps saying cut a deal, or the consequences will be dire. Charlie Daggett, great stuff as always. Thank you so much.